Welcome to Talk Spicy to Me, a podcast where two best-selling authors go rogue and talk all things romance. The good, the bad, the unbearably hot, and everything in between. I'm one of your hosts, Giana Darling, lover of poetic prose, morally gray men, and steam hot enough to melt your Kindle.
And I'm Kandi Steiner, writer of emotional roller coasters, angsty love stories, and whiskey-soaked heartbreak that'll ruin your life in the best way. Together, we're peeling back the sheets on the romance world, from sharing behind-the-scenes writing stories and debunking industry myths to swooning over our favorite spicy reads and messy book boyfriends.
So grab your favorite beverage, climb into your cozy reading nook, and settle in.
It's about to get spicy.
Ooh, I can't end the intro without going, ooh. Like a little kid that's just way too giddy about this, about talking spicy.
I mean, literally same though. Like, I swear every time we come on here, I'm like looking at what our topic is and I'm like, I'm so excited to talk about this. I'm so excited to talk about this. And then every time by the end, we're like, we could do a part two. It's just, I mean,
hopefully we will have the wherewithal to do part twos because some of the stuff is just too juicy to spend only an hour on. Really.
100%.
And honestly,
100%.
Today is one of those days because not only is this a juicy topic, we're talking about magic books, what makes a book feel magic to us, to readers, and there's a difference. But also, we have a guest today, and this guest is my surprise for Kandi, and I kind of feel like it's the best surprise that I could give you. Like, this is a gift that I, specially sourced from, like, the Himalayan mountains. It's, like, special, and, like, not everyone gets to experience how magical this person is. But this is why I wanted to bring this magical person on for the magic books. They're probably blushing right now, like, oh my God, Giana, stop it. But here,
I'm so intrigued. Okay.
Let me give you a little intro. Okay, so this woman is a USA Today and Wall Street Journal bestseller. She is a former librarian known for writing some of the most exquisite prose and erotic scenes in the industry. They are a bespoke author with no boundaries that goes into pagan sex rituals, maybe some naughty priests.
I know this.
Who do you think it is?
Is it Sierra Simone?
Sierra Simone!
No, it's not.
Yes,
You're lying.
Here she is.
Hi.
Yes. Hello. Hi. Now I feel like I have so much to live up to.
I was gonna say.
I'm like, oh my God, no pressure.
Were you in fact blushing when that was happening?
She's still blushing.
Yes. Next time, just be like, we found her in a gutter. She was wearing a trash bag.
Well, I was going to lead into
really
that. So obviously I'm the queen because I brought Sierra Simone on to surprise you. And
you are literally the queen.
I was saying to her that it was funny because the other day after we were recording, we were chatting about potential guests and you were like, yeah, I kind of thought you might bring Sierra on because I know you guys are friends and I just love her. And I was like, too bad I didn't think to bring Sierra on. Yeah. Really. Bad me.
She was like, yeah, and I asked someone who just like couldn't, and and I was like, oh, she totally tried, and like Sierra's so busy, there's no way
she
that
made
could
time
come
for
on our
us.
podcast.
But like she is so busy because you're in Wichita right now.
Yeah, so I get to see our friend of the pod, I assume, Penny Reed tonight. I'm in conversating with her.
That.
Yeah, so I am in lovely Wichita, Kansas, and I just want to apologize if we hear the sounds of construction or drag racing. Apparently, drag racing is very popular on the street I'm on. So
that makes sense to me. I mean, for Wichita, for some reason, drag racing.
Yeah,
sure.
What else is there to do?
Little bit,
really, I say this as a Kansan, but yeah.
I grew up in Kansas for like the first 5 years of my life, so I also agree. Drag racing sounds normal.
Remember like a vast emptiness. That's generally.
Oh my gosh! So my grandparents live in Kansas still. They have their whole lives. They live in a tiny little town called Tribune. And when we went out there for the first time with Jack, he was so confused because we fly into Denver, but instead of going towards the mountains, we go toward nothing, and it's just like 3.5 hours of absolute flat earth, like no trees. He was like, where are we? Where are you taking me? But it's beautiful.
That seems about right.
Yeah. West Kansas is, that's bleak. Like that's love to live in West Kansas. Yeah. I live in Kansas City where, we have trees
That's
occasionally.
Nice. Love that.
I come from
Love
big
that.
tree land, so I can't imagine living in like flat. I'd get lost.
Wait, but no, literally, like, Jack was, like, pointing it out to my grandpa, and he was like, he's like, you look, and, like, no matter where you look, there are no trees. And my grandfather was like, isn't it the best? You can see everything for miles. We could not be more opposite, Gramps, but I love you.
Yeah.
So cute.
Yeah. We do have great sunsets. I will say, like,
True.
that's not just like state chamber of commerce propaganda. Like, our sunsets are truly magnificent. So,
And you have some great food, like, hidden in the wildest spots in Kansas. Like, some of the best food in my life, especially barbecue, Kansas City barbecue. Oh,
Kansas is one of the only
Top-notch. Yeah.
states I have not been to. There's like 5 left that I haven't been to, and Kansas is one of them. So maybe I should put that up on my list.
check it off the list.
Yeah.
yeah, if you come to Kansas City, just go to Kansas City and then you can cross Missouri off, and then there's no need to
Okay.
go any deeper into
Okay,
Missouri.
there we go.
Just spend the rest of your time in Kansas. Yeah.
I will be there. Are we ready to do our spice report?
Yes,
Okay,
please. Let's
so
jump in.
for those who don't know, our spice report is where we talk about something that is just we're really excited about. Like just one topic that we're only doing one with a guest. So it's our hottest spice level salsa, something that you're just obsessed with right now. I don't even think I warned Sarah about this. I apologize. But whatever, I know you, so I know there's about 50 things that you're super obsessed with right now that are super interesting. So just pick one of them and we'll just share with our listeners what it is that we're vibing with lately.
Yeah, I love it.
Do you want to start us off,
gosh.
Kandi, or
Okay.
Sarah, whoever wants to go?
Oh, yeah, I can start us off. I am currently obsessed with Sabrina Carpenter's new song, Man Child. I can't stop singing it. It's so catchy. I mean, everything that she releases is so catchy and lovely. And I have somehow found myself on like Sabrina Carpenter theoretical TikTok where people are like breaking down how her music is so timely that it could be put in a time capsule and it will just like completely like, I don't know, capture everything that we are today as like young women. I say young, I'm 35. As them, they are as young women.
Yeah.
And I thought it was so interesting. So I listened to this whole breakdown of the song and like how everything was so, perfect for today. And anyway, so that's my obsession
cool.
is just theoretically thinking about all of Sabrina Carpenter's lyrics.
It's kind of a cool theoretical question. Like, what songs would be perfect for a time capsule for this moment? Because that'd be a pretty tough one.
Totally. And like they were talking about how Taylor Swift is so much like timeless, right? Like at any point you could pick up any of her songs and relate to them and yada yada. And they were like, but Sabrina Carpenter is like, I'm talking about a very specific time and place and energy that's happening right now.
She feels
And,
very
like,
topical.
I love that. Very topical.
Yeah.
I really like for this generation of like pop girlies that there is just like more openness about sexuality. I feel like the pop girlies I grew up with in the aughts, it was still very much like a purity culture kind of situation where like there was sort of this like shroud over sexuality in lyrics. Like it had to be sort of like veiled references, and like virginity was like, the ideal for any pop star. And so I kind of love that like my 14-year-old daughter is growing up with like women in sort of like an idol position who are not perpetuating like sexual shame, who are not sort of perpetuating this narrative that virginity is like what defines your interest or your art or your worth or anything like that. Like I kind of like that we've moved past that. And I feel like Sabrina and Chapel are like such good examples of that in their lyrics.
I think also just our response
obsessed.
to them as well, because I even remember, if we're talking about like the aughts, like for example, Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera, when they had their shift to be sexier, it was like a whole narrative and problem, and it was because their fame had gotten to them, and because they were unhinged now, or they were doing drugs or whatever it was, and it wasn't just them like not being young women, like young children basically anymore, and they were harnessing their sexuality and being grown women, and that's so amazing that we don't have to have
refreshing.
that anymore. Yeah, exactly.
And with Brittany and Christina, especially, for them, it was like, oh, be sexy the way we want you to be sexy. And like, we're going to dress you sexy, but you're going to sing these like virgin songs and like, you know, keep your innocence and everything. Oh, no, you can't own your sexuality. That's not okay. We don't like when that happens. Like,
no, it was all male domineered sexuality and how they wanted you to be perceived. And it really gave the ick. And I feel like Sabrina Chapel, I feel like if someone tried to manufacture their own sexuality or make them, they'd just be like, fuck off. You know, which I love. We love that energy for sure.
For sure. Okay. Sierra, what is your hot salsa of the week? Tell us.
Okay. You're going to have to like guide me through this a tiny bit. And is this something that is like related to sensuality, or is it literally
anything that you're super into right now?
We talk about golf.
You can talk about moths if you want to talk about moths, because I know you have a thing for that. You can talk about whatever you want.
Yeah, so there was this Neolithic burial. No, I'm kidding.
You're not kidding, but okay.
There is an Instagram account called Red Receipts that I am super into right now, and they kind of take the drama of the week, whether it's like pop culture or political. They gather up the best tweets, but then they do custom embroidery for like the drama of the week. So like when they were doing the Wicked press tour and Ariana Grande was being interviewed, and the interviewer said something like, you know, the queer community is really holding space for the lyrics of Defying Gravity. And Ariana Grande reaches over and like holds her coworker's pointer finger in a very strange way. Anyway, so this account did like custom embroidery of that. And yes.
That's our new handshake, just by the way, when we see each other in person.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's amazing. She's embroidered. There was like a meme going around for a while that was like, guy from somewhere, like guy from Philadelphia, guy from Boston, guy from Ireland, unhooking your bra, and then like the things that he would say. And she had done the custom embroidery on like a sheer mesh bra.
Oh my gosh,
it's amazing.
that's hilarious.
And she has like a shop, so you can buy some of the embroidery. So anyway,
100%. I just wrote it down. Like I'm not forgetting this. So good.
I just saw a reel where, I guess this is a new thing that Bookish girlies are doing, where they do little like micro embroideries on the sleeves of their sweaters with like things they love from their book, and it looks like little tattoos.
Oh, cute.
It is the cutest thing I've ever seen in my life. And I go to craft night here with my girlfriends every Friday night, and we just sit around. We all bring a craft. We like drink little drinks and like have our little gossip. And I cannot wait to start a Bookish like micro embroidery
That's
sweater.
the most 30-something thing that you've ever said. Just by the way, just
and I've said a lot.
Yeah, you've said a lot. But oh my gosh, we have like a little wee drink and we do crafts, and I can't wait to embroider on Friday. It's so cute and so wholesome, and I love that for you.
And listen, and I ordered a Woobles kit. That's where I'm at. Okay, I'm trying to learn how to crochet. So
I did not know that was what
Hey,
that was.
I am re-teaching myself how to crochet. And I just want to say that when I was a teenager, what I did not notice is that the magic ring that you start with for most like crochet projects looks a lot like a butthole. So I was like walking around the house, like, look what I made.
Look at my little butthole.
Look at this little butthole out of yarn. You didn't know I could do that.
You should just make a series of like multicolored buttholes, just you know, in little rainbow buttholes. That would be so cute.
Oh my gosh.
I actually love that.
Content. Content idea.
You could have your own Instagram for that. I would follow rainbow buttholes.
Yes. Rainbow buttholes.
Oh my God. Rainbow buttholes. Happy Pride Month, everyone.
So good. Okay, so
Giana, what's your hot salsa?
My hot salsa is, it's a bit sad, but it's really interesting. I'm listening to this audiobook called It's Not Hysterical by Dr. Karen Tang. And it's about basically the history of like women's reproductive health, and not just reproductive health, but like the obviously it's called It's Not Hysterical because it talks about like just the history of women and medicine and our relationship with it. It's fairly tragic to listen to, I'm not going to lie, and but also I'm like, how did I not know this? For example, it was only in 1993 that Clinton made a bill that passed that was women and minorities had to be included in medical studies. Before that, it was just white men. That's 1993, people. That's like a day ago. I know for young people, maybe you're like, that was that long ago. No, like that's really not that long ago. And it's just there's so many like stats that I listen to. Like there's a chapter on Black bodies and like reproductive health, and they were saying that bearing no socioeconomic status, Black women are 3 times as likely to have complications with giving birth. And that doesn't matter. It does not matter like how much money you make or where you live. In the UK, it was 4 times.
Wow.
And like so I'm listening to this and it's like, I listen to it on my walks and it's sunny and nice out and I'm like, ba 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 with my dog. And then I'm listening to these quite honestly like horrible facts, but I feel like it's so important for me to know them. And also like there was this whole principle of Socrates came up with this idea of the walking womb, where they literally believed if you were not able to procreate, that your womb was traveling around your body and you'd have to coax it down to between your legs with like honey and like sweet things, like it was a dog or something that you were luring into like a cage with sweet treats. Like how mind-boggling is that?
Sounds legit. I mean, listen, if I learned anything in the time that I was pregnant is that we know nothing about our bodies. Like I was like, I'm so ready to be pregnant. I watched What to Expect, the movie. It was great. And then it was like, oh, here are all the things that you did not know. And it was literally every little thing. I mean, from the fact that, did you know that your teeth and your gums go through terrible, terrible times while you are pregnant because your baby is like pulling all of everything from your body, but all the calcium and things that you need for your teeth just like go down there. So you're more likely to get cavities. You're more likely to have gum bleeding. Like who knew that? Not me. And also after you give birth, there is like a dinner plate size wound in your, like where the placenta detaches itself that has to heal. So you have to heal inside as well as outside, as well as take care of a baby.
Women are amazing.
Madness.
I mean, everything that I
Truly.
ever hear, literally ever, about women, biologically, spiritually, mentally, whatever, I'm like, wow, we are so cool. We're so incredible, which is why I also love the space that we occupy as romance authors, that it's so female dominated. And the fact that even I feel like it has to be one of the #1 industries for women working and men supporting their wives. I love how many times you meet people and they're like, oh yeah, my husband works for me. And it's like, that's so cool. You never really, exactly, like you, Kandi, there's so many people where their husbands work for them proudly. And I'm like, I don't know another industry where that's the norm like it is for ours. And it's so cool to see so much like female empowerment in that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say this is like tacking back to what you had said earlier, but if you would like a lighter hearted women's sexual history foray, there is a 2011 movie with Hugh Dancy called Hysteria. Ooh. About the doctor who invents the steam-powered vibrator in like the 1880s.
And Hugh Dancy's in it? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, Hugh Dancy and Maggie Gyllenhaal, and she's like a suffragette, and she's like, all of this is BS, like Hysteria is BS. And he's like, I know, but my arm is tired. Like, I just have to do something about my tired arm, because it was believed that the way you relieved the symptoms of hysteria in women was by coaxing them to a hysterical paroxysm, which was an orgasm. Because the Socratic theory of hysteria was that your womb was wandering because it was dry. And so you had to keep it moist, either with semen or like fluids of arousal. And an orgasm would sort of like reset the machine, like resetting a router, you know?
Wild. So wild.
But the problem was that these patients would come back in like month after month and be like,
I'm hysterical.
Hysteria, doctor.
Oh no. My husband doesn't know what to do with my hysterical nature.
So this doctor invented the vibrator because he was like, I can't, like, my poor hand, like I have arthritis and I'm only like 31. What am I supposed to do?
Can you imagine? Like, sorry, doctor, I'm suffering from arthritis. Oh, are you a writer? Do you work with your hands a lot? No, I just digitally stimulate women so much. I have arthritis in my hand.
Yeah. So much. It's my Hippocratic oath. I have to.
Oh my God, that's so funny. Oh, I'm 100% watching that because that sounds amazing.
Yes, it does. It does. Oh, I love this. Okay, I feel like we should jump into magical books and what that means and what the hell we're talking about. So I think when we were sort of brainstorming the topics that we wanted to chat about, this one just came up organically because we were talking about like, what is it that makes a book like blow up? Or what is it that makes a book stick in your brain forever? Even if it wasn't like a quote unquote like popular release, but it's one that for you always go back to, you always think of when people ask you for book recommendations, it's like one that pops into your head. And like, what makes that happen? So I'm really curious, Sierra, do you have one of your books that you feel like is a magic book for you in the sense that like it did really well and you didn't expect it to, or readers just really cling to it, or it changed your career trajectory in some way? Like, did you ever have a magic book, or do you have several?
Yes. Gosh, I feel like I have a couple different ones, but I feel like they're sort of in different categories of magic books. Because I was thinking about this when Giana told me the theme, and I was thinking about how the term magic book I could apply to, like, are we talking about the Hunger Games, or are we talking about like the Song of Achilles, right? Where like one comes close to outselling the Bible, you know, in its heyday. And the other one is like a rite of passage for every college freshman to read. And so like they're very different kinds of magic, right?
Yeah.
And I think for me, Priest is the book that is sort of like, it changed my career. It like continues to sort of be this like powerhouse title of mine. But then also I think for me, I wrote a trilogy that was a retelling of King Arthur.
Yeah, you did.
And that trilogy was so not at all, like I couldn't map it at all onto the contemporary market. Like it wasn't really something I could comp easily to, but I wrote it because I couldn't not write it. And the fact that it has continued to find its audience and resonate with people, despite the fact that even now it's still like kind of a strange like little bird. To me, that is like, that's magical, right? Because those magic books are the ones that sort of like, they fly on to sort of roost in the minds of the people who really need them. And that's like kind of like that Song of Achilles, the secret history kind of book where they're sticky, they're evergreen, and you might not notice it, you know, because like it's not always on an end cap at Barnes and Noble, but it is the kind of title that lives on through word of mouth and through like missionaries, right? Like these missionaries.
Yeah. So I'm curious, were those self-published books or traditionally published?
Yeah, they were both self-published. So they are traditionally published now. Yeah, I think so. I mean, and I talked a little bit about this at Romance Author Mastermind last year, but I think that when you are indie publishing, you are granted the freedom to kind of like market with a scalpel rather than with like a shotgun, which is like kind of a violent metaphor. But what I mean by that is, you know, traditional publishers, because they have infrastructure, because they have overhead, they have had to sort of streamline and make more efficient their cover design department, their marketing departments, their publicity departments. Everything has to be just like a little bit more streamlined because that makes sense when you're running a business that has to rent space in Manhattan. And what that means is that if your book does not sort of fall squarely into a very easy category, it's a lot harder for them to sort of use their apparatus to push your book, right? Like if you're writing even like just great, brilliant rom-coms, right? Like Emily Henry or something, there's already like a really great apparatus for getting rom-coms out to market. But if you're writing, I don't know, a rom-com, but she's also a zombie or something, and you're kind of delving like a little bit into horror or a little bit into sci-fi, then the lines start to blur a little bit. Like you might have a publisher who's a little bit more like, we should lean into the rom-com part, or we should lean into the zombie. Where when you're marketing your own book, you don't have to pay for, you know, office space in Manhattan. You can take riskier choices. So I remember my cover for American Queen, almost everyone advised me against it because they were like, it was 2016. You should put a man without a shirt on the cover of your book. And I was like, it just doesn't feel like the book to me. Like, sorry, guys, I'm just going to do what I want because I can, because there's no one around to tell me no. And it ended up being a really good marketing decision. Like it really matched the book and helped pull it forward. So I think that there is a magic in it.
It's so iconic.
I can see that cover in 100%. My mind without even
Greer in her blue dress.
pulling it up.
Yeah.
Yes. It's beautiful. And I do think there's so much to be said for the freedom of self-publishing, because you can say like, I realize that maybe the audience isn't already built for me, but I'm willing to put in the work to try to find them. Or at the very least, I just want to write it for me. Like I want to read this book.
I also think it's why they can take off in such a stratospheric way, because it's not same. Like sometimes when you're looking at a publisher's, fall release schedule, you're like, okay, well, these are all very similar. And again, it goes back to that apparatus of like, we know how to market these books, so we want to market these books and promote these books. Versus for us, it's like, I want to write a King Arthur retelling and I want it to be a MMF. Like they would have literally no idea, especially back then, what to do with that. They'd be like, absolutely not. We're not touching that with a 10-foot pole. Versus you're like, I have literally unlimited space to do whatever I want to market this book. And I think that a lot of the time, even now with the market being much more saturated than it is, people are still looking for something different, because, there's always going to be things that trend and sell. And there's always going to be people that want those things. But there's even more people who are like, I'm tired of that, or I want something new and divergent. And usually the indie space is where they can find them. And that's why I think there's so much room for magic books in the indie space. You don't really read a trad book very often. I think Song of Achilles is actually one of the only examples. And it was published years and years ago. It was published for like 10 years before it blew up because of TikTok. So that's a special instance. I think in general, it's the indie books that are like, wow, who knew that we wanted a dark rom-com about cannibals? Like we have no idea.
Or Ruby Dixon, who brought us Blue Aliens, which let me tell you something. I binged like the first 4 books of that series when I was heavily pregnant and could not sleep. And it was a delight. Yeah. It was such a delight. I'm like, I've never read anything like this. It is so fun. I do think like you have to though be willing to take that risk, right? Like I do think it's a trap sometimes to be self-published, find success, and then what? Because then you have suddenly this like, sometimes it's pressure we put on ourselves. Sometimes it's pressure from readers who find us or whatever, but we want to repeat, right? Like you want to do it again. You want to find success again. You want your trajectory to go up and not, down. Or if I have learned anything, or even be the same, right? And if I've learned anything, it's that it's very rare that happens. Like, I am so glad that I've gone through the ups and downs, because now when my career kind of takes a little bit of a dive, I don't panic, because I'm like, this is just part of it. This is part of the consistency. This is part of the wave that I am writing. And it's also part of writing what I want to write and what feels good to me, and not always thinking about what is going to make me the most money, because I personally couldn't do that. And I know both of you are the same way. Giana and I talk about this a lot. Like when you are heavily artistic, it's very hard to think only with that business mindset. And I just personally can't do it.
Well, Sarah gave a great talk talked about this at Romance Author Mastermind, that was about being a bespoke author. And I feel like that's probably the perfect way, if we have to define Sierra Simone, to define her by almost not defining her and saying that she's a bespoke author. Because I mean, if you look at like all the books that you've written, Sierra, like, okay, so you have, your indie self-published, that I feel like you always have themes of spirituality and like sexuality in terms of sexual awakening or discovery. I feel like those are 2 really kind of identifiable Sierra Simone journeys that you take readers on. But apart from that, like you have Christmas rom-coms, you have ritualistic pagan sex rituals, which, are amazing. You have a priest, you have a president, you have so many different things. What do you think, if you had to say, your form of magic is that you bring to across all of those different topics?
Gosh, I mean, this is a tricky question, because I feel like it's so specific to each author. And so I don't want to say something, that's true for me and then have an author listen and be like, no, that's not how I found success or anything. But for me, I have found that the more indulgent I am with myself and the more specific I get inside of a story, the richer I find the storytelling for me. Whether that translates into a better experience for readers, I don't know. But for me, I think that there is a danger in, and this is like in indie, as you pointed out, Kandi, as well as trad, this danger to sort of pull you towards the mainstream. And it's like, it's many pressures, because it's the pressure of well-meaning friends. It's the pressure of editors. It's the pressure of beta readers. It's an internal pressure that you feel of like, if I deviate too much, like, am I going to lose the ground that I've made, you know? And a lot of that comes as defining success in this industry as my one book selling at least one more copy than my last release, right? Like that if I sell less than my last release, I have lost ground. I have failed in some way. And I think that we have to define this job a little bit differently, or success a little differently, just because you don't have control ultimately over a book's performance. If Sky Warren were here, she'd be like, Sierra, shut up. But she already knows we fight about this. In my mind, the market is so variable, it's arbitrary. And so there's just no promise that you could write something that is exactly the same as your last bestseller and have it do as well. Yeah. Like, you just don't have control over that. What you do have control over is the book you're writing right now and what it means to you to write it and how you feel while you're writing it. And so a lot of what I have had to unlearn in the last 15 years or so is trying to create my own center of gravity and not feel pulled into the gravity of sort of more mainstream storytelling, which tends to want you to generalize a little bit more, you know, to be a little bit more accessible. Kennedy Ryan and I will call this the wide doorway, you know, to like widen the doorway. And I think that this can spill over even onto marketing choices, because I don't know if you guys remember my old Lesson in Thorns cover,
which I love and have. I have it facing out on my shelf because it's one of my favorite covers of all time. Talk about erotic. It's so beautiful.
Yes, that whole series.
I love that image. And one of the pieces of feedback I got frequently from many sources was that it would turn people away before they got to the book. And I said, because I don't need a reader to get 50% into a book and then realize that they made a mistake. Mm-hmm. I don't need a reader to finish a book and then be like, oh, okay, well, I finished that, mark it down, moving on to the next author. What I want is a person to see that cover and be like, yeah, that's for me. I don't even care what's inside. That's for me. And then I don't want them just to buy one book from me. I want them to read a book and then be like, well, now I have to go back and read everything she's ever written. And so, but I think that you get to there by being specific. I think you get there by avoiding that pull towards generalizing, whether it's tropes or characters where you're just sort of sanding the edges off things that might be troublesome to some readers, that might turn readers off. For example, I know that a secret baby, right? That is like a very controversial trope right now. But I've written it before because it felt like the right, move for the story. And I have had people say, that's going to turn people off. If they find out there's a secret baby, they're not going to read it. And so if I were market minded, I would be like, okay, ditching the secret baby, right? Like, now it's a secret dog or something. And so
secret goldfish.
Right. And so there is this pull to take the easier path. And by easier, I don't necessarily mean in a craft sense, but just in like a content sense, to give a wider doorway, to give readers less reasons to say no. Yeah. But I really feel like there's a lot of like inverse equation here, where when you start giving readers less reasons to say no, you're also giving some readers less reasons to say yes. This is what I've been waiting for. And so that kind of storytelling comes from giving yourself permission to sink fully, deeply into what you're doing and just like lean into the promise of the premise, And I think that is generally how I have been approaching things, is more specific and more indulgent. We are like, if anyone has survived like reading their own 1-star reviews, there is sort of a like feeling of, oh, it was too cliche to have her be from a small town and then come back to the small town. Readers felt like that was so trite and overdone. But if you like that, if that feeds you, then just like indulge yourself as a storyteller, because the great thing about romance is our readers are here to indulge themselves. Our readers are not here to be like, oh man, well, I read my last, I read second chance romance for 30 years, but the last one was my last one and I never want to read it again. Like, no, they're like, just give me every second chance romance there ever was. So our readers are indulgent too. And I think we can honor them by being indulgent in our storytelling and not trying to subvert so much that we actually like lose like the juicy deliciousness of what's inside of the premise.
I feel like this feeds into the idea of cultivating super fans. And we haven't really actually talked about this on the podcast, but I do think that magic books are magic because of your fans. And a lot of the times because of your super fans, or what you were saying, like the missionaries that go out there and spread the good word about what you've created. And in order to do that, I think you have to be so authentic to what you're giving them and what you enjoy about putting out there. And they're going to read your whole backlist because there are things that you're indulgent about. Like I always want to have some sort of sexual discovery. I always want to have themes of spirituality. That your readers who love that, they're going to read everything. They're going to go out and they're going to relay that to everyone. My readers who love age gaps, they're like, hey, you love age gaps? Giana Darling like doesn't write anything else. So let's go. It doesn't mean that there aren't tons of people who hate age gaps, who get the ick, whatever. To me, that doesn't matter because those aren't my people. And we're talking about that wide doorway. I think it's an illusion. I think that you can get lost so much more easily in that big space versus if you kind of niche down, you think that you're limiting yourself to a smaller audience when actually you're not. And that audience is so vibrant that they're going to convince people who might not have taken a chance on you to take a chance on you, therefore creating more super fans and making that niche audience even more pervasive and like important to your career.
Yeah. Amen. And I can't say that any better.
Yeah, 100%. I do think also the authors get themselves into trouble with this, or like a bad mental space, because they are like, I did everything quote unquote right. Like I did the right tropes. I did what my editor said would sell. I published it at the right time. I did the right cover, yada, yada, yada. And then they're like shocked that it doesn't become an instant bestseller. And I do think, to your point, Sierra, it's like, well, what were you giving me that I haven't already read before? Yes, maybe you reach those readers who want the repeat, right? They're like, I'm looking for something very similar to this. And they might eventually stumble into your book or say, oh, this looks like it's the same vibes, so it's for me. But you also have those people who read what they perceive as a magic book. Like, let's just say Heartless by Elsie Silver. They read Heartless and they're like, oh my God, this was amazing. Does that mean they necessarily want to read every other, cowboy romance? No, because they don't think that anything's ever going to live up to what Heartless was, right? Yeah. Like, it's like that is now owned in their mind by Elsie, as opposed to, something where anybody can do it. And so I think that's really interesting too. It's like finding your own voice that readers say, that's what you give me. That's what I'm going to come back for.
Well, I think that's such a good point, because it's kind of like, it's a common adage, I think, to say you can't recreate the magic. And that's should go here too. Like, if you set out to try and write Heartless by Elsie Silver or Priest by Sierra Simone and replicate it, I have inherently lost the magic, because you're not doing it with soul. And I think that it's those soulful books that really kind of can be shockingly powerful books and successful books. Like, we've talked about this before, but I had that dark academia Medusa retelling. It's a sapphic romance. It was like, everyone was kind of like, what the hell, G? Like, what are you doing? Like, this is just very weird. And I was like, it is very weird that I'm just randomly writing this, but I have to do it. I'm going to do it. And it's not going to do well. I don't even care. This is my passion project and I'm doing it. And release even was fairly lackluster for like a release of mine. I went into it knowing, like, let's be real, sapphic romance unfairly does not usually perform that well, especially in the short term. Like, if we're talking rank, big numbers, that sort of thing. So sure. I was prepared. I was happy because it got good reviews, and that was like my barometer for success on that. No kind of financial compensation, whatever. But to this day, now over a year later, it's still my number one book sold in bookstores. I still have emails all the time about how much people love it. I have people that run bookstores reaching out and being like, just so you know, we can't keep this on the shelves. And I think that that's an example of something where I literally was almost contrarian. I was like, hey, you all think this is a bad idea? Well, fuck you. I'm going to do it. And because I felt so moved by the story. And I think that when we feel really moved by the story, it's not always the case. Sometimes we feel super moved by the story. We're like, this is going to be amazing. Everyone's going to love it. And they don't.
And
but don't. I do think that there is something there. You're basically doubling your chance of success and having that magic if you feel the magic from the inception of the book. Even if people are like, you're crazy.
I just have to say I have experienced something similar with Saint, which by sales is like the lowest selling of that series. But by number of tattoos, it's the highest. You know, like for the amount of people who've read Priest and then have like a Priest tattoo compared to how much Saint has sold to how many Saint tattoos I see, like there is something about how are we going to measure success if we do it? Because like by pages read, it would be one book, but by tattoos, it would be another. And that is a much more committed form of fandom, right? And I think it's like, are we going to measure success by pages read or by books, like bookstore presence, right? Like these are, it almost depends on what metrics you use. And the other thing I would say about like trying to capture the magic is that some books like Heartless, you almost can't go back because they changed the industry by existing.
Yes.
Like they changed the landscape. So you can never actually do it again because the landscape itself is different. Yep. All you can do is sort of look forward, but also within your own backlist. Cause I think we've all probably had that one book to be like, oh God, if I could write that book again, like just right. Like it would just make my year. But I don't think you can go back because you have the process of writing that book changed you. Yeah. And so even if I wanted to write Priest again, I couldn't because I was changed by writing it. Like going through the book transformed something inside of me. It shifted something inside of me. And now I'm no longer the same writer. And so I couldn't replicate that. Even if I tried, I can only move forward.
Not to bring up Taylor Swift all the time, but I think that she just released her letter talking about how she has all her rights back to her music, which is wonderful. But in the letter, she addressed the fact that she had not released Taylor's version of a certain album, which is Reputation. And she explained that she did not feel like she could go back in time to that place and create anything better than what she'd already created. And I think that's speaking to exactly what you're talking about, in that sometimes things are so of the moment that you cannot touch them anymore. They just exist in this perfect prism in the past, and it was a perfect moment or perfect storm of everything coalescing to create that magic, that even if you wanted to, even if you like somehow created a scientific experiment to make all of the parameters the same, it would not work.
It would not work.
Yeah.
I feel that I just went, A Love Letter to Whiskey is coming to bookstores this year, and I went through it top to bottom and re-edited it. I didn't want to change the story, but I was like, my writing has improved a lot in 9 years. Like, let me just take a little gander through here. And I'm glad I did. It needed some cleaning up. It had some verbiage that I was like, ooh, this is kind of icky. Let me change this. But as I was reading it, there was a point where I stopped editing and was just like immersed in the story, thinking, who the fuck wrote this? It wasn't me. How could I couldn't wrap my head around it because I was such a different person in such a different time of my life. And I'm so glad that I decided to write that story when I did, because it wouldn't exist if I tried to write it today. It just would not be the same. And I feel the same way. Like Blindside is another one of my books that I feel like had a magic something about it. And it was because the first book in the series did not perform well. It did not hit the top 100, which was, at least at that time, something that I measured as success, right? And I thought, well, it didn't hit the top 100. My readers don't want this from me, but I'm already starting book 2 and I want to write this. So I'm just going to write it for me and it'll be great. And I will enjoy it because, it's just this fun little romp between the athlete and the, little bookworm, and it'll be great. And then because of that freedom, because I wasn't thinking about how will people receive this, it turned into something magical. And it is so hard to replicate that because it's you can't just like click a button or flip a switch and make it happen. It has to happen organically. And so I think that's why we're all like, listen, if we knew how to bottle it up and reproduce it every time, we would, but it's impossible.
I would even try to sell it. You could make bank off of that.
Yeah.
You know? Like, here's the little
right?
magic potion for magic bugs. Here you go. But I want
I mean, oh, go ahead.
I was
Giana,
just
go
going to
ahead.
say, I think that both of you have touched on this in that, like, what is your definition of success? And I feel like the key takeaway here for anyone in any creative field is that there are so many different versions of success. And I actually had my agent ask me this past year, like, what's your definition of success? What do you want? You know, do you want X amount of money? Do you want a film deal? Do you want whatever? And for me, I found that such an interesting question and like self-study. And my answer was, I want to be like Nora Roberts, as in I want to be someone who's synonymous with romance. I don't care about my sales. I don't care about how many books I write. Like, I don't care if even everyone likes them, but I would like to have a sort of reputation as being a certain level of author. Like, people know my name. People I like, oh, you read a romance book? Have you read a Giana Darling book? To me, I was like, that's it. And I don't know, that's a fairly unquantifiable metric. And so that's something that then I need to take in and be like, okay, this book didn't hit the top 100, or this book didn't make X amount of money in the first week of release, but that's not what my definition of success is. So it's okay, G. You also saw that a bunch of people that have never read you before picked that book up for the first time and read you. That's more people reading your book. Therefore, this is a success. And I think it's redefining for yourself what that means and figuring out your own metrics that make it easier to stick to your own path and to have your own center of gravity instead of being sucked into that like wide doorway.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing that I would say to like anyone creative who is like negotiating with a future project and their ideas of success is that you only have the brain you have now. I think that there is a temptation when you have this idea that feels magical, when you just have like a feeling about something, right? Like you're just so excited to write it. There's almost this like fine china feeling of like, but it's not time for me to like take it out of the china hutch yet, right? Like I need to be smarter, or I need to be more creative, or something about me needs to change before I can write it. And I appreciate that. I'm very guilty of this. But one of the things I'm trying to embrace now that I've been publishing professionally for 13 years is looking back at my books. I can't remember which one of you said it, but it was like, maybe Kandi, it was you, it was talking about whiskey, where it's like, I'm so glad I wrote it when I did. Mm-hmm. And I feel that way about so many books in my backlist now that I don't think at 37 I could have written the books that I wrote at 29. And so I'm really glad that I took that moment in time. And so I try to have that now, like today in the present, when I feel like this idea is almost too good that I don't want to like smudge it up with my dumb fingertips. Like that, like I only have the brain I have now, and I don't have a promise of tomorrow. So like, what is stopping me from plunging into something that is calling to me right now?
Yeah. And I think as more of us as indie authors make deals with traditional publishers, this is more important than ever to keep in mind and to stick to your guns, because if I've learned anything in the very short time that I've kind of dipped my toes into this world, it's that suddenly you go from pretty much your voice being the dominant voice, and maybe you have some colleagues or friends who weigh in if you ask them to a whole team of people telling you why an idea won't work or why you should steer away from it. And it can be crippling. Like it can really hurt if you let it guide you. So you have to, again, like Giana said, come back to like, what does success look like for me? What matters to me? And maybe you're like, I just want to make a ton of money. So you're like, okay, cool. I'm going to follow whatever they tell me is going to sell. But I think so many of us, it's so much, there's so much more nuance to it than that, and what actually matters to us. I know for me, when I get a message from a reader that says your books helped me through this hard time, and it doesn't even have to be one of my like, poetic books. It could just be like, hey, I read Blindside and those spicy lessons were fun. Great. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And that connection with another human being means more to me than any, dollar amount ever could. So I don't ever want to lose sight of that because I'm trying to chase an achievement. But I do have achievement in my top 5. So I have to constantly battle that, right? Like, what is important to me in this moment and in my lifetime, and how do I just remind myself to stay in that lane,
I think we've talked a lot about being an artist, and I will iterate, we're obviously all business women as well, and fairly successful ones. So as much as it sounds like we're like hippies beating our own drum, we are to a certain extent, but I think it's more that, maybe we started out as purely artists and we've learned and grown and adapted to find where on the spectrum we fit best and we feel the most comfy between that extreme artist and that extreme business person. And that is a journey that, even if we told you the exact steps we took, you could not manufacture that for yourself because it's going to look different for everyone. And it's just a series of experiences that you have that tell you where you feel most comfortable on that spectrum.
This is why I really encourage younger writers to find siblings, publishing siblings who are in the same, maybe 2 years as them, because you learn from each other, you learn in community. But the things that we learned back in 2016, 2017 aren't useful to anyone anymore.
No.
Like when I published Priest, I published it into KU. And it was a pay per borrow model. They didn't even have KE and P yet. So my Kindle Unlimited advice would be almost worthless, to someone who's publishing in 2025. And so finding that community, your publishing siblings, is so useful because you're all you're learning in the same landscape at the same time. But then I would say that, one of the things you also have to learn is how to sort of guard your own candle flame from, other people's breath as they're talking. And so I think it's very common to have publishing siblings say, well, I did this and I had a ton of success. And to not feel the temptation to just try to do what you already know has worked for them.
Yeah.
You still have to be judicious about what advice you fold in to yourself, just knowing that, you're a different person. I think our sort of publishing sibling family is really blessed because we have so many people who did it so many different ways.
It is
and
truly
so,
amazing.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was more.
And I think that
was there more avenues? I was going to say, was there more avenues? But I don't know. There's lots more avenues now. Like you can blow up on TikTok. We didn't have TikTok when we were starting out, so it does just change. It doesn't mean that it's better or worse, but there are so many different ways to beat a horse. Is that the expression?
Well, but also
skin a cat.
Skin a
so
cat.
many different ways to skin a cat.
Wrong animal, wrong violent act.
Close enough. No, I think something that's really cool about our class, if you will, is that we were figuring it out together, and we didn't have there were no YouTube tutorials, there was no Alessandra Torre Inkers Con, there was no there was nothing there was nowhere to go to be how do I do this, or what is working. And so the education part of it was just messaging someone online and being hey, I realize that you are also writing. How do you navigate this? And we depended on kindness and encouragement and the willingness to share knowledge, which I think is what makes it so special. Sierra, when you came on today, I was just lighting up inside, and it doesn't matter that we haven't spent, years of our career together. The small magical pockets of time that I've had with you have left an imprint. And I feel that way about so many people in our class because of the kindness and the willingness to share knowledge that I feel made us who we were and who we are now.
We became friends, Sierra and I, because that's the kind of the role that she took with me when I was starting out. And I am very conflict averse, don't want to step on I'm the little sibling, I always say. I don't want to step on anyone's toes, take up anyone's time. I don't want to be at all demanding. I'm so sorry, I'm just happy to be here. And so the fact that I not only felt comfortable reaching out to Sierra to ask those kinds of questions, and she responded to me in such a way that we then developed a friendship, that's a very special thing. And it happens, it happened a lot with our class because that was the only way we could learn was basically through those interactions. And I do wonder if it had a really positive impact on our community in terms of there being more of a feeling of sisterhood than competition. And I think that's changed to be quite frank with you, I think that's changed quite a bit. Maybe also because it feels like it's very oversaturated and people know you can make money in romance and all of these different things. But I think that it behooves everyone to remember that we're all usually women in this together, and that there isn't a finite pie. We can all. Yeah, every time I see someone that's successful, I'm like, let's freaking go.
Hell yeah.
I don't even care if I know them. I'm like, you're in romance, you're a woman, you're kicking butt. I'm going to buy your book right now. Like, huzzah. Because we need to remember that it benefits all of us, that any success that anyone else feels just carves out more room for success for other people. And also that the foundation of this community is in community. And we are trying to share positive values and feelings with each other and experiences with each other. And that's where the magic, I think, begins.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, not to reference the little book called the Bible, but there's a parable in the Bible about loaves and fishes, right? Like there's not enough fish, there's not enough bread to feed this crowd until Jesus is like, well, maybe just stop counting and start sharing and then we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And then lo and behold, there's enough. And I think that the message I've always taken from that parable is that most scarcity is imaginary. Mm-hmm. Most scarcity is in our heads. It comes from a place of like very like mammal, like, you know, like fear, like amygdala driven fear that there won't be enough. And it's almost always not true. There almost always is enough. And I think that romance is a great example because as the product has grown, right, as the market has grown, so has the readership. You know, I think that there was a point where I was hearing people say like, I don't know that romance can sustain this kind of growth in like 2017.
Yeah.
And now that we've had like the pandemic and book talk and everything, like, no, like there was still so many more horizons to go to. And so I think that a lot of times this fear of sharing useful information, it comes from this fear of scarcity that like, if I write cowboy romance and I share, you know, my tips and tricks with someone else, they're going to come for my crown, right? Yeah. Like that is going to mean less for me overall. But that's not how it works in romance, which is great because, you know, if a reader is into cowboy romance, they read one cowboy romance and they'll be like, fuck it, give me another one.
Yeah,
and
sure.
so
the self-indulgence.
I think that there's exactly. So like there is, I think that I see fear of scarcity popping up sometimes. Yeah. And I hope that sort of the power of community and all that will dismantle that fear, right? Like there's enough for everyone and there's enough to share. And I think especially if you write more bespoke kinds of books, that sharing is so important because no one method is going to work for a bespoke author. So if you are the kind of author, like we have friends who can comfortably write like 11 books a year, you know, like that's just really easy for them. Yeah. And it's like, it feeds them to do it. It's not stress or strain. And, but for a lot of us, if we're in like a 1 or 2 book a year kind of zone, like we're not going to be able to follow someone's like plan out your year to write 6 books sort of like, you know, method. It's not going to work for us. So we have to be sort of constantly gathering in publishing and marketing advice to pluck little like blooms, you know, from these bushes that'll work for us and then kind of gather together our own bouquet that's sort of tailored to what we want.
It's why I feel like sometimes I might even come across as flippant when people ask me like, oh, well, what did you do? Because I think sometimes I trivialize the work that I put in just because I'm like, what I did, I don't want you to think what I did is what you should do because we're very different people. And I think that finding success, and we keep coming back to this idea of like knowing yourself and niching down into who you are. And that doesn't just include what kind of stories that you tell, or it's also how frequently you can produce a story. It's also how you promote a story. It's also how many different things you can have in your basket. Like TikTok doesn't work for me. It works really well for Kandi. You know, this doesn't work for me, but it works really well for you. And you are the only person who can answer that. So you have to have a lot of input and be open into taking in all of this information while knowing that no one else can create the exact roadmap except for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I would add to that the answer, I mean, it's hard, but in a way it's simple, and that the answer is always in the book that you wrote. So when you're asking yourself marketing questions, cover, blurb, which social media platform to kind of prioritize. All of these, I think, can be answered inside the book, inside the content itself, which is why I really encourage authors to be really, really indulgent, to be really specific, to go ahead and write the My Wife scene, even if you feel like people have done My Wife, 7 Ways to Sunday. Because like when you are like, what excerpt should I put on TikTok? And then you're going through your book and you have 400 pages of playing it safe, you're not going to find 2 paragraphs that just pop on a 15-second reel, like that answer is almost always in the content itself. And so that's why I think if you let yourself create magic inside of your book, even if it's only for yourself, that is like 70% of the work done for you for marketing, because all you have to do is let people know about something magical rather than trying to convince people to buy something that you built hoping they would like it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
and
beautiful.
There's smart ways too to find that intersection between like what seems to be working in general and what readers are into, because we all know it's cyclical, so don't think that like most of these tastes are evergreen, but there are things that readers are looking for in a moment. And that moment is usually, I feel like the lifespan typically is like 2 years, maybe 3 years on the back end. But, we can talk about like cowboy romances. Cowboy romances don't really suit a Giana Darling brand, but if I was like, you know what? I do think that cowboy is popping off and I'm kind of intrigued by it. I would have to make it my own. So maybe I would make them biker cowboys. Maybe they would be criminal cowboys. There's ways to take, again, all of that input that you're getting. You just have to tailor it to yourself. Always.
Wait, now I want a Giana Darling criminal cowboy series. So
yeah,
you have to write that.
There might be something in the works already, but yeah, I think there's a way to do whatever you can. I feel like we're not stick to your lane people, and we always talk about this idea of like staying in your lane. Like Melanie Harlow and Skye Warren give great talks about staying in your lane, and it works for them and it works for so many people. And I remember one of the first things a PR person told me when I was starting out was, if you want to make $1 million, write the same thing over and over again and change the character names and change the setting. And I know we all know there's like scientific proof that this can work. But we're just also saying you don't have to do that to find success, and that the quality of the success that we found by following our own magic, however specific and niche that might be, has also led to success. It just means that you have to be almost like hyper self-aware and a little protectionist about what makes you different.
Yeah. Elizabeth Gilbert talks about that a lot on her podcast and in her book, just about how like there are so many different types of writers, and like she talks about how she's sort of jealous of some of her colleagues who are that repetitive sort of like, here's the same story but in a different way, tied up with a bow. So it's highly palatable. It's something that you can easily sink your teeth into, and that if you pick up my next book, you're going to get a similar vibe. And she's like, I just wish I could do that, but for me, I'm like, oh, let me write, Eat, Pray, Love. And then I'm going to write about like, a girl in the Amazon. And then I'm going to write about like, she's like, whatever moves me. Right. And, but I think like when I was listening to it, I thought to myself, well, this is why I love reading your books though, is because I know you're going to take me on an emotional journey. I know you're going to like dig yourself into my heart and make me feel something. And that's what I want when I pick up an Elizabeth Gilbert book. I want that feeling. You could put me in any setting, with any sort of character, but it's the feeling that you bring that I come back for. So I think there's magic in that as well. Like the feeling of a Sierra Simone book, the feeling of a Giana Darling book, the feeling of a Kandi Steiner book. And that is what creates those like loyal readers who are like, I don't care what you write, I will read your grocery list, and they mean it.
Yeah.
Have you guys talked at all about like Becca Syme and StrengthsFinder?
Yes, we have, because we reference it so much.
I'm not like, I'm not like going in raw here. So Becca Syme talks a little bit about this, like having a sense of yourself and your own storytelling, like what makes a Sierra Simone book. But she said something really wise, which is that it's really hard to know that with your first book or even your second book. Like it almost has to be like book 3 that you can look back and be like, oh, this is the well that I'm circling without even knowing it.
Yes.
Because when you're first starting out, it's hard not to sort of decide that I don't know, if I'm Melanie Harlow, right, that I write small town romance with like slightly neurotic characters, and then not have that become a little bit prescriptive rather than descriptive, which is just a more scientific assessment. So like the difference would be deciding I write this kind of book versus looking at what I've written and saying, oh, here's what I see. Here's what's in common. It's a lot more freeing, I think, because then you can create a brand and a storytelling voice that's already organic to you, that's already emerging naturally without you having to sort of graft and curate and coax it into being.
I always say that it's funny because I had written 8 books before someone said to me, hey, gee, you only write age gap romances. And I was like, no, I don't. It was literally exactly that situation where I hadn't even willfully done that.
Realized.
Like I had no idea. And I actually just did a vlog about this, the whole concept of like, well, what do you do when you're just starting out to set yourself up for success in terms of branding? And we've talked about this, Sierra, before, where this idea of id or identity. And yes, it's so much easier once you've written a few books. But even before that, if you're really just starting out, pardon me, like just get a blank piece of paper and think about things that you associate with yourself or with the joys in your life. Like if I was just starting out, I'd be like, well, we all know Giana loves the color red. Okay, so red, this is just, I'm wearing a red dress. I'm wearing red on my dress today. I usually have red nails. Red is part of my branding. It's also in my books. The last book I wrote, he had a red Ferrari. In another book, he buys her a red dress to wear on their date. Like these are things that it seems so meta and detailed, but it actually builds to create this wonderful 3-dimensional picture of,
it's a vibe.
It's a vibe. It's an aesthetic. When we're talking about that atmosphere that I am entering into when I'm reading a Kandi book or a Sierra book, you don't realize it's not about one trope. It's not about like a subgenre. It's not even about a single relationship dynamic. There's certain things that you're drawn to in your storytelling, like found family for me is in every single book. The color red. I always talk about Greek mythology or pearls. Like these are such tiny little things, but you don't understand until you look back how much you're pulling those threads and weaving this tapestry throughout your whole books to create that identity. So if you're just starting out, sit down, have a brain dump, meet yourself for coffee and be like, hey, what's up with you? What do you like? What kind of music do you enjoy? What kind of relationships are you drawn to? Who are you in a friend group? And I think that that's a really good way to start because, again, it's kind of what your own psyche is and you're learning from that.
And what are you nerdy about?
Yeah.
Like, what are you nerdy about?
Yeah.
Like, what intrigues you? Because as a writer, you have to do so much. You don't have to, but you should do so much research. And that's part of the fun. And Giana and I talk about this all the time, how we geek out when we get to that part of our book because we're like, oh, I get to like dive into what it's like to be the dentist for a professional hockey team. This is great, right? Like, and not everybody cares about that, but I do. And that's what matters. So ask yourself what you like to nerd out about. Maybe it's creating a world of blue aliens and then there you are.
Yeah.
I think that this is so useful for kind of circling back to, as business people, making decisions about accessibility, marketability, how it fits into the mainstream, because once you know what matters to you, it's a lot easier to then take advice to say, well, you have a rugby team, but hockey is really hot right now. How do you feel about changing it to hockey? And if you're someone like me, not like Kandi, where I'm like, all sports ball is the same. It does not matter. I was just here for like muscly thighs anyway. Yeah, sure. I could change to hockey. But like I have a friend, Andy Christopher, who's coming out with a Formula One romance next year. And if someone had asked her to change it to NASCAR, if they've been like, well, they're all fast cars that go vroom, vroom, like American readers are more familiar with NASCAR. Can you change it to NASCAR? She would be like, absolutely not.
Right.
Formula One is what I'm excited about. That specifically is what I'm excited about. And so knowing that kind of thing about yourself, I think helps protect you when you are interfacing with friends, with well-meaning publicists, with well-meaning beta readers, to kind of decide like what tropes, what settings, what parts of a character's backstory are actually essential and what is like no big deal for me to change.
What hill are you willing to die on? And you can't die on all of them. We know this. You can't die on all of them, but which ones are you willing to die on?
Okay, before we lose too much time, I would love to, we have like a green flag, red flag segment that we're going to jump into. But before we do, can y'all think of a book for you that you've read that is not your book, that feels like a magical book to you, that you can remember, you can go back to the time when you read it, you just like, it will never leave your heart. It has a special place on your shelf. Like, what is that book for you?
So many. How do you pick?
I know.
I can answer for it. Mine is Thoughtless by S.C. Stevens. And I feel like it lives with it. It is like if there was a root system in my heart that like everything else grew from, it is like part of the root system. It is just, for me, reading that book, it was life-changing. I remember staying up all night. I remember like when I finished the series, going to YouTube and watching like fan-made videos. And I don't know, like for me, I haven't read it in so long. Maybe I don't even like it anymore. I don't know. But it at the time I read it, it resonated so deeply with me that it's like forever a magical book for me.
What about you, Sierra?
Yeah. Oh, gosh. I don't know. I feel like also so many. So I'm like trying to think of like my special, I have like, special bookshelf. And so I'm thinking about what's on my special bookshelf.
I have one for you, I feel like. Is that weird? But when I was thinking of Flowers in the Attic, maybe?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's like going way back to like my DNA as a storyteller. I read Flowers in the Attic and Clan of the Cave Bear in the same year. And both of those books were extremely formative for me.
You can tell.
And yeah. And I think that one of the things that is really, because both of them are made to be sort of mass market pulp, right? Like there's nothing highbrow about them. There was never anything highbrow about them. They were not meant to be that. And what I found inside there was this sort of like almost like Narnia-like doorway into this larger space in my brain that I didn't know existed, where so much of what you learn as a child and as a teenager, like what the process of school is to turn you into an adult who can pay taxes and have health insurance. And unless you're in Canada, you probably have like health insurance automatically. Good for you. I'm happy for you.
What can I say? Go Canada.
But while you're in school, like the kind of thinking that you learn is the kind of thinking that is, it's scientific hypothesis, it's critical thinking, it's logic, it's rationality. All this stuff is like very necessary to like have a working society. So I'm not like, we should just let children roam free in the woods. I'm not saying that. But there does come a point where your imagination can become so closed off that you forget to ask yourself, like, what if? Like, what if there was a door in the wardrobe? What if, I don't know, the scary old man next to the house that my parents abandoned me in is like a scary monster man and not a friendly old neighbor, right? And as you become an adult, you get better and better at tossing away these what ifs before they even have time to become real thoughts and to think only in the most sort of efficient and logical paths. And I feel very lucky that when I was young, I stumbled upon books that gave me an outlet to sort of like nurture that plant of imagination of what if. Like, what if my grandma locked me in an attic and fed me poison cookies? You know, like, what if I were a girl who was adopted by Neanderthals? And so that avenue of imagination for me was extremely vital into, it flowered into like my storytelling later on.
It's so fascinating because so I feel like obviously we don't even understand some of the root system that we come from and why we do certain things. And I think that's one of the coolest things about the writing journey is you're constantly realizing things about yourself through your work, because I think people don't know how unintentional a lot of the things we do are. You're just in that zone where you're creating, and afterwards someone might point something out to you and you're like, well, damn, never knew that about myself, but you're totally right, And that's one of the coolest things. And when you can also context is my number one trait for the Clifton Strengths Finder test. I know we have
Mine
like
too. Mine
3 or 4 of the same top 5 or something.
We
like
have a
that.
lot in common.
It's crazy, and that's actually quite a rare one. But it makes sense for my brain because whenever something happens, I'm like, why did that happen? I'm an invasive species. I'm like, why did it happen? If I meet someone new, I'm like, is your father proud of you? Where did you grow up? Did your parents have a healthy sex life? Like, I want to know every single thing that has ever happened to you. And when I think about my writing and I think about the books that I've read, and like to answer your question, there's so many books on this timeline of what made Giana darling as a person and as a writer. And they're probably different, right? Like there might be some overlap, but some of them are different. And I think, not to be totally cliche, but Song of Achilles is one of them. And I actually read that book before it was popular. And it's one of those books that left a scar on my heart. And that sounds painful. And it was painful. That book was painful. Both because it's sad, but also because it changed me. And change is challenging, as it's meant to be. And it hurts you. And I remember reading that book and just feeling like seen as a storyteller. Because I was like, this is the kind of thing I want to write. This is how I want to write. I want it to be this beautiful, this evocative. I want to capture people not just because of the plot, but because of a single blade of grass that's waving in the meadow. Like, it felt to me on every single level that a story can resonate with you as if it had been written for me to read. And I still can't think of it without having an emotional response in my chest. And I think that that's not only cool as a reader, but as a writer, I feel like those instances that we have that relationship with books, that's what we're hoping to have and create with readers through our books.
Yeah, I was thinking about this earlier in the episode, and the thought like flew out of my head. But it's so interesting when you were talking about like what builds you, what builds your style, and like, you know, deciding what that is versus like, you know, looking at what you've created and kind of figuring it out. And hearing you guys talk about the books that built you, like I'm thinking about how much I loved Catcher in the Rye and Wuthering Heights. And like, I am such a fan of messed up characters, and I have been my whole life. I want those toxic sort of like messy people. And I think it's because, you know, people innately are like none of us are completely perfect and lovely and have no skeletons in our closet. Like we all do. And I love books that make me think like that and make me realize that we all are kind of a little bit messed up. But the beautiful thing is when we can find love within that from other people, from ourselves. And so it's really interesting hearing y'all talk about the books that built you and how they sort of like, you know, make their way into your writing style. And doesn't that make you so excited to think that maybe there are writers now or in the future who read one of your books and felt the same way?
I know. A super cool example of that is actually QB Tyler. We became friends because she had read Welcome to the Dark Side and loved it. She read that, and she read Christy Webster's, come on you guys, the really forbidden one that the Wilds. Thank you. God, that was so embarrassing that I couldn't think about that. She read Welcome to the Dark Side and The Wild, and then she wrote Unconditional, which like took off and kind of was one of her first success stories. And that's how we became friends. And I still sometimes when I feel badly about myself, I'm like, how cool is it that someone that I love and admire as a storyteller was inspired by me? Like, that's cool. And I'm inspired by both of you. And I always have been. And so it's one of those things where how badly can you feel about yourself knowing that another artist, even just one artist in the world, could have been inspired by like one sentence that you ever wrote.
Dude, that's what, when we talk about success, that's
it.
What we're talking about.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay. Before we let you go, Sierra, we have a red flag, green flag segment that we like to end the show with. It's really fun. And I think Giana brought one for us today.
And it's so perfect. And I'm so excited about it.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Okay.
So the idea is that she is going to give you a scenario, and you have to tell us if you think it's a red flag or a green flag, both in real life and in fiction. And the answer can be different or the same, but you have to answer for both.
Yeah, because it's like all green flags and
That's what we've discovered, honestly. Yeah, 100%. Okay, so this one's really fun, and I feel like topical for Sierra. And the scenario is sexual punishments.
Oh, yeah. I mean, green flag.
Yeah.
Rob, next question, right? Like,
green finger both.
Yeah.
I actually feel like this is something that can be very safely done in real life as well. And so I would say green flag in real life, as long as it's coupled with good, consistent communication from everyone who's involved. But in fiction, do it.
Even if there's no consent, do it. No,
do
it. The parameters are much wider. Yeah, in fiction, for sure.
Dude.
Yeah. I just reread like an old favorite of mine because I was in Scotland. So I was like, I want to read like a Scottish historical romance. And it's so problematic. But anyway, it's called Claiming the Courtesan by Anna Campbell.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about a duke's mistress. And one day he comes to her house and she's like gone. And it's because her contract is up. And she's like, I'm going to go be a pure person who lives in the countryside now. And he chases her down. He's like, the hell you are. And he kidnaps her to his manor. And it's like a captivity, like Dubcon romance. But
so wonderful.
Oh man, it's great.
But a fiction, so it's
in fiction.
Like,
I don't actually want to be kidnapped,
Yeah, and not by a duke. I don't know if you guys have seen like the current slate of dukes in the UK right now, but there's like one
hard pass.
Maybe could kidnap me, but the rest, the rest I'm passing on.
Let's also talk about the hot crazy scale, okay? So, you can, the crazier you are, the hotter you must be, whatever. So,
yes.
Absolutely.
Kandi, what's your...
I mean, in fiction, 100% green flag. I have to say, I am kind of, I guess, like virgin when it comes to this in real life. I've never been sexually punished, but I like the idea of it. I'm intrigued.
I'm going to highly recommend.
I do feel like this is something too that could be like, there could be a spectrum because it can even be something like orgasm deprivation or edging.
I do love edging.
Or like, I am going to make you come so many times that you're actually like,
stop.
Please stop. So like there are, it doesn't have to be like all like leather cuffs and stuff. Like there's kind of a shallow, it's like a zero entry pool.
Yeah.
Playful side of it.
I love like in fiction, a nipple clamp situation, but in real life, do not come near my nipples with clamps. We will fight. We will have words.
Agree to disagree.
I actually think this is like a breastfeeding trauma response because I have been bitten on the nipples so many times non-consensually that I can no longer take nipple pain.
And then they just smile at you. They're like, hee hee hee, like little evil gremlins.
Okay, well, I haven't experienced that yet, so I'm on the pro side of nipple pain, but that might change.
Well, we've talked about but you are like super sensitive to the point where you could like come from that. Right? Like from nipple play. Yeah. So I think that's a big difference too. I am like, this is like my very sensitive area. I'm like, be delicate, be nice. Unless I tell you to be rough, then be rough. Like it goes by what I say.
Yeah. Fair enough. You reserve the right to have that. I'm going to say obviously like massive green flags both ways.
She's waving.
I'm waving both of them. Like my whole screen is green flag because I love any kind of, I feel like it's both about trust and it's about play. And they say that like couples that play together last longer. And I think that play...
They stay together,
yeah. And I feel like playing in the bedroom is like such a distilled part of that, of like the trust and the play being such a powerful tool of connection. And so I really love seeing that in books and how they navigate that and how fun it can be. And also like... no one wants to fight. And I love seeing it in a book when it's like, instead of having like a blowout, it's like, let's just harness this and make this, I'm just going to spank you 20 times. You're going to count it out loud. Afterwards, I'm going to give you an orgasm. Then I'm going to fuck you because I'm angry. And then we're going to be over it. And we can talk about it like civilized adults. It's like, that's how every argument should go. Like, let's just have this be what we do instead.
Well, I think that it's, it's like to that point that it can be its own syntax, right? Like sex can have a syntax, but what makes language effective is that it's shared. So it doesn't matter if I have an elaborately developed syntax that someone else can't understand. And so I think that when you're looking at things like sex and sexual punishment, the idea is that both, or however many people are involved, share the syntax of what is happening, right? Like that they are communicating and the communication is being received, understood, and like fed back. And so I think that's where when I see it in writing, even if they're playing around with consent, that's kind of what I'm looking for is like, is the physicality conveying this like deeper interior meaning between the characters, even if like we are in sort of a gray area with consent, because that is what to me the scene is like accomplishing, is this exposure of interior
It's like
feeling.
an emotional feedback loop. Like they should both be getting on that page. But that's what I love is like, but it's that idea that you could say anything to anyone about your deepest, most shameful, that aren't shameful, like thoughts and feelings, and that person makes you feel seen and validated. And instead of judging you, they're like, is that something you want to stay a fantasy, or is that something you want to do as a reality? And I can create a safe space where we can do that. Like that to me is the sexiest form of communication because it's so deep and vulnerable. And it takes such a level of communication that it's kind of like impressive and respectful.
Yeah, and it keeps things fun.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so I would love to sit here and talk to you for hours, Sierra, but we want to be mindful of your time. But before we let you go, please tell our listeners where they can find you and what's coming next from you.
Better burn.
Yeah, so you can find me, or rather my content manager, Flavia. You can find her on Instagram and TikTok. My accounts are at the Sierra Simone on both platforms. Occasionally, she cajoles me into filming some sort of version of my face, so I am there sometimes. And my upcoming release is September 30th, Bitter Burn. It is the conclusion of my contemporary and kinky retelling of Tristan and Isolde. Speaking of sexual punishment, there's plenty to be had.
You can send it to me whenever you want, just PS.
Oh yeah, it's done. So I should send it to you.
Tristan and Isolde, so I'm sold. I have not dived into
They're
the
so
series.
good. Also, I already have all of the special editions that have been created for it already. Literally, Sarah, I just did a video of special editions that I have, and I have I think I have every single one you've ever done. Like I have so many of them. I was like, wow, you have a problem.
That's impressive.
That's a good problem.
Love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I will also throw in that I am obsessed with Sierra Simone's Thornton Chapel series, so I would highly recommend.
I need the new covers for that actually. Yeah, I need to get those. Those are beautiful.
I love the old covers.
I already have those.
I already have those. You're like,
I just feel, listen, I have a well-rounded Sierra Simone collection, okay?
I'm just gonna start taking over your entire house.
I have multiple shelves, so don't you worry. It's just a matter of time. Thank you so much for coming on and being my surprise guest for Kandi. I feel like you made both of our days, our weeks. I could listen to you talk about literally anything, and I have, and it never gets old, and I'm just so thankful that you shared your wisdom and presence with us today and with our listeners. You guys, I know you love her as much as we do, so it's not just us fangirling.
I mean, I feel like I need to go grab my tarot card deck for our After Dark episode. Like, what would be better than that?
Yes.
Just pull a card. I love it. I love it.
Yes.
Okay. Listeners, thank you for being here. And if you want to support the podcast, we have a Patreon we would love you to be a part of. But otherwise, just come find us on social media. Tell us what you thought of today's episode. And thank you for tuning in. We hope to see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.